Hey, what's up? Hello, welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl. This episode, we are talking about something I know Matt is very excited to dive into, and that is the
Ooh.
2023 Cannes Film Festival lineup is officially out. We have all the movie speculation is over. Matt, I guess, what are some of your first reactions?
Well, first reactions is I'm tired as hell. It is currently 11 p.m. I've been up since 5 a.m. because that's when the lineup was announced this morning. I got up to listen to the press conference, which could I have slept in and just looked at the list afterwards? Absolutely.
Could have taken a nap.
Did I get up early anyways? Yeah. Did I sleep today? No. So, I am running on fumes, but I am pumped to talk about this. Now, this is not the full Cannes Film Festival lineup. There are still a bunch of films that are going to be announced. A bunch might be an overstatement. There's still a few films, including in the main competition, the most prestigious lineup. There's still probably 2 to 3 movies that are going to be announced, and possibly the potential of a movie that has been announced switching into competition. But we'll talk about that. Feels a little bit like Oscar nominations morning to me. The difference is, with Oscar nominations morning, we know those movies. With the Cannes Film Festival, we don't know these movies at all. In fact, this is the first time I've ever heard of most of these movies. But why it's such a treat is because it gives me something to look forward to. These are the movies I'm going to be watching for the next year. These are going to be the movies that I'm looking out for at TIFF. Cannes always has some of the best films in the world. Cannes really blends the best of both worlds in that it gives me new films from filmmakers I love, like Wes Anderson or Martin Scorsese, but also it gives me a bunch of films from filmmakers that I am not very familiar with, or maybe have literally never heard of before, or maybe who I've seen one movie from and have never dove deeper into their filmography. So it gives me an opportunity to explore and learn more about the wide world of cinema. Now, there are always the obvious picks here. Like I mentioned, Wes Anderson, Scorsese. We're going to talk about those, but we're also going to talk about some films that have both of us excited that we hadn't really heard of before today. So let's start off by talking out of competition. Let's talk about something we're really excited about because we got to chat Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese. Dylan, how are you feeling about Killers of the Flower Moon? Apparently it's 3 hours 45 minutes.
You know, we have that's when we talked the other day about this. I was like, I just want to know how long Killers actually is. So this is the real runtime. Cool. I'm down. 15 minutes longer than The Irishman. And I'm sure I'll be good. And I'll be able to actually watch this one in the theater because I didn't see Irishman in the theater. I had to watch that one on my couch, and it's a little hard to make it through that on my couch in one sitting. But in a
Yeah.
theater, I can do that with no problem. I'm really excited for this, not just because it's Scorsese, but for its cast. I love DiCaprio. I can't remember the last time he was in something that I did not at least somewhat enjoy. Brendan Fraser's in this. After the Whale, you have Jesse Plemons, Robert De Niro, a Oscar frontrunner Lily Gladstone. I mean, the cast
Mm-hmm.
sounds great. It's Scorsese. It's going to look great, and it's going to sound great. And I just can't wait to see this, even though I won't see it until like October.
I bet that you're over there thinking as well, why is this out of competition? What are the rules of the festival? How is Scorsese not in competition? Apparently, in an interview today, Terry Fremont, who is the director of the Cannes Film Festival, he makes all the big decisions. He has asked Apple and Martin Scorsese, he basically said to them, if you want to be in competition, you can, and they have not answered yet. So it is still possible that in the next week or two, Killers of the Flower Moon could switch from out of competition to in competition, but apparently Fremo works very last minute, and he starts offering competition slots like literally 2 days ago. So it's only in the past couple of days people have been accepting their positions in competition. So it's possible that some of the movies that we're not seeing here in competition have just not accepted.
That would be my main question. Why would Apple say no to being in competition?
So there are rules around the Cannes Film Festival, which dictate essentially if you're going to play a film in competition at the Cannes Film Festival, you have to have an exclusive theatrical window, I believe, of 15 months. A streaming service might not want to comply with that. That is what pushed Netflix out of the competition. They were in for 1 year. They brought Oksha and they brought the Meyerowitz stories, and then they never came back because they were told you have to play by our rules, you have to play by our specific theatrical eligibility window. So a lot of people at first were thinking Killers is not going to be in because Apple's not going to want to play by those rules. They are playing by those rules. They have basically abided by all of that. They are doing what Terry Frémaux wants them to do to be a competition film. Apparently, the issue isn't Apple. It's that Scorsese might be holding back being in competition, because I think Scorsese understands that he knows he doesn't need a competition slot for this film. Maybe that competition slot should be filled by someone who is up and coming, who is not a legend of the status of Martin Scorsese. But that said, I would love to see Martin Scorsese in competition at Cannes again. He hasn't been in competition for a very, very long time. I believe the last time was in the 1980s. If I'm remembering correctly, it was for After Hours. I might be wrong on that, but it would be really nice to see him back. Would he win anything? Absolutely not, because I think the jury would think the same way that he thinks and say, do we really need to give Martin Scorsese an award here, or should we give it to someone whose career could be changed by this?
I mean, I guess to backtrack that a little bit, they just did give the Palme d'Or to someone who already won it last year. Obviously, Oslin's no Scorsese, but he was a previous winner.
Yes, they give it to previous winners, but I would see especially Ruben Östlund being hesitant to give it to someone who is so Hollywood, right? And this is a $200 million movie. It doesn't need the boost that something else does. Another movie in air quotes that is at the festival, Dylan, I want you to talk a little bit about, because I don't really follow this. I know you are a bit more of a fan of Sam Levinson, and I think definitely more of a fan of Abel Tesfaye, but there is a very special movie version of their new TV show that's coming to Cannes.
You mentioned Scorsese's last time being in competition was with After Hours. Well, the artist who made the album After Hours a few years ago has his new TV show, movie, whatever you want to call it, coming in here with The Weeknd. Abel Tesfaye, also decided by Sam Levinson. The Idol is here. Obviously stuff has could have changed today once it actually was announced, but when this originally got confirmed for the festival, it was going to be the first half of the series. It was a 6-episode series. The first 3 episodes is what they were going to show here, because apparently there's a major cliffhanger after the 3rd episode. So I don't know if that changed. It's going to be 1 3-hour or however long these episodes are slot, or if it's going to be episode 1 followed by episode 2 followed by episode 3. Just they're broken up. Not really sure how that's going to go, but yeah, The Idol is, I think, an interesting choice to come here because it's had not the most, let's say, good production so far. They shot the whole thing, and then apparently HBO wanted to redo the show. There were some rumors that it was due to The Weeknd and Levinson not liking, and Lily Rose Depp not liking how the show went, but HBO came out and said, no, we just thought it wasn't good. We wanted to redo it. So interesting that HBO would say that and then redo the show, and ever since they reshot the show, even more controversy has come with this. But I guess, as we've mentioned before here, Cannes is no stranger to controversy, as they have their opening night slot filled by someone who hit and spit on someone. So this should be interesting, to say the least. I've really become a fan of HBO's TV shows. I recently watched The White Lotus, both seasons, which I think are phenomenal. Succession's dominating right now. Barry's about to come back. Will this continue their trend of just banger after banger? I hope so.
And we've got another really big movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
As we've talked about in the last few weeks, James Mangold's a name who keeps popping up, whether it's Ford v Ferrari or now Indiana Jones. I really like him as a director. I think he brings a lot of interesting style. And I won't say he's a safe director, but I don't know many people who dislike Mangold or dislike any of his films. I think most of his films are very liked, if not loved. And not saying this is this year's Top Gun Maverick, but if any film blockbuster was going to be that, it could be this. But also, I think what happened with Maverick last year is a once in a decade top thing. I don't think it's happened 2 years in a row.
To round out the out of competition, we also have Cobweb, which is a South Korean movie directed by Kim Ji-woon, the director of I Saw the Devil. That could be a very fun one. I Saw the Devil is a twisted movie. Cobweb doesn't seem that twisted, though. It does not seem like that type of violent, gory movie. because that type of movie is reserved for the midnight category. And I'll just talk about a few in this category because there's not much that really stood out to me. But I will say Kennedy is an Indian film. It's directed by Anurag Kashyap, who directed The Gangs of Wasseypur, which is an excellent, excellent Indian movie from a decade ago. It came out in 2012, and it is a fantastic crime epic. I have high hopes for Kennedy because of that. There's also Acid, which is a post-apocalyptic movie. It's based on a short film, a horror post-apocalyptic movie about a world where acid rains from the sky, and it's about people trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic wasteland where the sky suddenly spits out burning fluids onto them. That sounds like a midnight movie. Now we're done out of competition. We're done midnights. Let's get into the premieres section and the special screening section. I know the question here is probably what the hell is the difference between all of these categories, right? From what I've gathered, I'm no expert on this. I don't understand the real reasons behind all of this, but okay, out of competition is like blockbusters. This is the big fun movies. This is like the movie movies. You know, when you see a movie and it feels like a movie. This is the Don't Worry Darlings, right? This is that big type of movie. Then midnight movies, these are genre flicks. The Cannes midnight movies a lot of the time are really not midnight movies. Like Moon Age Daydream was a midnight movie last year. That's not a midnight movie. Like,
that would keep you up forever.
Then there's the premieres section, which from my understanding is basically saying these are maybe less prestigious movies from very big directors. And, of course, the special screening section, which is movies that may be a little bit hard to fit in anywhere else. So first, in the premiere section, there's Pictures of Ghosts, which sounds pretty interesting. There's no plot for it yet, but it's directed by Kleber Mendonça Filho, who just came off of the movie Bacurau, which is fucking insane, and it's such a good time. It's like a crazy genre Western bloodbath movie that also played at Cannes. And so anything he does, I want to see. So Pictures of Ghosts is from him. I'm also really fascinated by Cerrar los Ojos, which is Victor Erice's new movie. Victor Erice, he is known for being one of Guillermo del Toro's biggest inspirations, specifically on Pan's Labyrinth. So I'm really excited to discover a little bit more, even if this one's not in competition where a lot of people thought it would be.
Just looking here, one name stands out, and a lot of people would be like, oh, yeah, it's his new Apple movie. No, Steve McQueen is here, but not with Blitz. He's here with a documentary, and I guess it's, staying in tune with the theme of the World Wars, because Blitz is about that as well, but this is more on not the David O. Russell movie, but just Amsterdam. And I guess do you want to talk
Steve
a little bit
McQueen's
more about
Amsterdam.
What this David O. Russell Amsterdam movie is about?
It's a 4-hour-long documentary about Amsterdam in World War II, which sounds like eerily similar to Blitz, because Blitz is about London being bombed during the war, and Occupied City is about Amsterdam being bombed during the war, and he's making these at the same time. But here's the interesting thing. Even more interesting than what was said about this movie at the press conference today is that the festival director made a reference when he said, oh, we've got Steve McQueen here for Occupied City. His next film will hopefully be in competition, is what he said. So that is floating the idea of Blitz
not this year,
possibly being in competition next year at Cannes. And it's also worth mentioning that outside of that Steve McQueen movie, which I'm very excited for as much as it's going to be 4 hours long and a documentary, in the special screenings category, we have 2 movies by directors who also have movies in competition. And this is the first year ever that there have been 2 separate filmmakers with 2 films each at Cannes. Only one person's done this before, if I'm correct about that. And it was Richard Linklater who did it in 2006 when he had Fast Food Nation in competition and A Scanner Darkly in Un Certain Regard. We're moving into our main 2 categories, Un Certain Regard and competition. Dylan, do you have any idea what the difference between these 2 is?
I mean, I know in competitions where our Palme d'Or winner comes from, but I don't know
Bingo.
What the other one would stand for.
The difference between these kind of blurs at times, but the main things it comes down to is that competition is the most prestigious place to be. And un certain regard, which means a certain look or worth a look, this is a category that's mostly dominated by new filmmakers, by
Okay.
filmmakers who might eventually be in competition, but this is the point where they're going to use their first or second film to prove themselves, to show that they truly are worth a look, so that in the future they can come and be in that more prestigious category. Now, the thing is, with this Un Certain Regard category, we don't know what of these movies are going to be good, because these filmmakers have not been around the block as much. We're not going to recognize their names, but always some of these movies go around to become some of the best movies of the year. Like last year, I can count 3 movies that I would count among my favorites. Return to Seoul, The Worst Ones, Godland, all movies I love. They all played here. They're very good films. We don't know it yet. We don't know what to expect from this lineup. There's going to be some that'll disappear. There's going to be some that'll break through, some that'll be probably shortlisted for the Oscar next year. Here are the ones that I'm looking at right now. So the first one is a British movie called How to Have Sex, which is directed by Molly Manning Walker. It sounds a lot darker than the title would make you believe. The title sounds like a comedy. The synopsis does not sound like a comedy. It is about a kind of endemic thing that's happening in Britain, where a lot of teenagers will book holidays to a specific place and go with all of their friends with the goal of losing their virginity at this specific place. And it's about these 3 teenage girls who go on this vacation. It's looking at peer pressure and trauma and not being ready for this at this time in their lives. It's sounds very interesting, and the director has a background in documentary camera work, which is also really interesting. But yeah, it's a funny title, but it sounds like the movie might be a bit somber, or maybe it actually is funny and it just talks about these themes in a bit of a interesting, lighter way while acknowledging the dark. I don't know, but How to Have Sex is one that I think I'm looking at, and I think a lot of people, if they were looking at the titles of all of these movies, they'd immediately go, that sounds great. That sounds like the one I want to see here. Then there's the next one, a Canadian film. It's called The Nature of Love. This one is directed by Monia Chokri, and a friend of mine was actually an assistant editor on this. I've heard great things about it. We know quite a bit about this one. It is a Canadian movie, and you know I'm going to be repping it through the film festival. And Monia Chokri, who is behind this film, is so talented. Her last movie was also at Cannes. It was called A Brother's Love, and that was one of my favorite comedies of recent years. It was hilarious, beautifully made, and this one is apparently just as good, and it has gorgeous camera work from what I've heard about it. I can't wait to see this one. It is going to be, I think, probably one of the biggest laughs out of anything at the festival, and I hope that this one connects with audiences. After that, there's the movie The Breaking Ice, directed by Anthony Chen. Anthony Chen is a fascinating filmmaker. He's from Singapore, and this is actually his second film this year alone. He had a movie at Sundance already, which starred Cynthia Erivo. And that was in English. This one is in Chinese. I don't know much about this. There's not much information about it on the internet, but he's a filmmaker that I think if anyone here is going to be in competition in a couple of years, it's this guy. Anthony Chen will be in that main competition very, very soon. Then the next one I want to talk about, Dylan, this one's very exciting because we have a new Cate Blanchett movie here. This is called The New Boy, which is directed by Warwick Thornton. It's an Australian movie. We're going to get to hear Cate Blanchett speak in her actual accent for once. From what I gather, Cate Blanchett plays a nun who is at her convent, and she takes in an indigenous boy, and the story kind of follows that. I'm sure it's about colonization. The director of this movie, Warwick Thornton, he just did Sweet Country, which won a big prize at TIFF, and it was a very interesting indigenous Australian movie, and I'm sure this will be the same. Maybe Cate Blanchett can stay in the competition for this.
I don't know if she would get an actual nomination, but if this film does qualify for like indie spirits and stuff along those lines, I could see her being like a mainstay all year, sort of like not to the same tone, but like how like Taylor Russell was always there for Bones and all last year, but she never had a real shot for the Oscar.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, and it's Cate Blanchett, so that's going to bring a lot more eyes to this movie than it would have otherwise. But this is the one that immediately I saw this in the lineup and went, ooh, that's the Cate Blanchett movie. That's fascinating. And the last one that I'm going to talk about here, because I don't know much about any of the other films, is the movie Terrestrial Verses, which is directed by Ali Asghari and Ali Reza Khatami. I'm going to mention this because I got so excited when I saw this because one of the directors was my professor at university last year, and so that was like
Hey,
wild. He taught my thesis class. He was quite mean to us, but you know,
I mean,
he's
he has a movie
he's
at
I
Cannes,
guess
so
he's
I
got a
guess
right to.
he earned it.
So yeah, but I got really excited and I sent him an email and was just like, congratulations. I was so excited to hear your name in competition. And I can't wait to see this film. So I will endorse Ali Reza Katami. He is a very interesting guy, and I am excited to see what he does with this movie and so happy to see him in the Cannes lineup right here. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know shit about any of these other movies.
You know what time it should be right now? We dive into what our possible 2023 Palme d'Or winner could be with the in
Ooh.
competition films.
Ooh, do you want my official prediction right now?
I mean, I knew what your prediction was before the lineup, and that was with a certain movie, but I'm gonna assume it's changed now.
Actually, I don't know if I was predicting it for the Palm, but I was predicting it to win something, and I still am.
Okay.
But I am not predicting La Chimera to win the Palm. I was not expecting the Zone of Interest to show up here. We've talked about maybe it could show up here, but the entire time we were like, okay, maybe A24 just doesn't show up here this year. But here they are, the Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer. This is the most interesting movie at Cannes. And with it being in this lineup, they rushed it to get into this lineup. I just put it in my best picture list. This is
Your
one
list
that
has in
I
like a
am.
top 25 or
No, top 10. I've got it at number
oh,
8
okay.
right now.
Interesting.
Number
All
8 right
right.
now. And
Bold
I'll
prediction.
give my reasons on a future episode, but what I'm going to say here is I think that this is going to win the Palm. My prediction for La Chimera being the film that kind of makes it from Cannes to the Oscars is kind of dying out because I think Zone of Interest is going to do that. Because this movie is, for one thing, it's a Holocaust movie, which always does well with the Academy. This isn't The Book Thief. This is an art house movie, but it's not inaccessible. This is a satire. The story, from what I gather, it's very loosely based on this book, but the book itself is about a romance that happens at a concentration camp between a Nazi officer and the camp commandant's wife. And it's a romance where we see these two characters falling in love with a backdrop of the most horrible tragedy, and the entire time we're thinking as readers, as an audience, why the hell do I care about a love story when the Holocaust is happening here?
You make a great point for its case because you have to remember who is our lead juror, someone who likes satire and someone who likes very not maybe not on the nose, but very just blunt type stuff, and that
Yeah,
sounds kind of like this movie.
exactly. Well, the thing that Ruben Ostlund likes in his movies, what he likes to do is he likes to hold a mirror up to things that people don't want to talk about in society. He
Yeah.
likes to try and make you uncomfortable. He likes to try and make the characters uncomfortable by having them not address certain things. And the thing with Zone of Interest is, again, it's a story about how evil manifests and how do people ignore evil and continue about their daily lives as if nothing is wrong while perpetrating horrible, inhuman acts. Is there humanity in the most horrible people? That's the questions of the book. I've read that the movie focuses a lot more on the people who are interned in the camp, people who are, and specifically the camp is Auschwitz that this is set at. And it also focuses on a family that lives next door to the camp and is there observing the horror, but not doing anything about it. So this is a film that questions what does it take for someone to be a bystander, and why are people bystanders in the face of evil. But the most interesting thing about this is that the cinematographer of this film is Lucas Zal, who's been nominated twice for Cold War and for Eda. And with this film, apparently they used 360-degree cameras. They had 360-degree sets. Apparently they were toying with the idea of doing multiple cuts of the film, where each of the different cuts shows you a different perspective of the story. Everything about this piques my interest, and I am feeling bold. I'm going to put it in Best Picture. I think that this is the film that climbs out of Cannes.
That is a great point. I was going to bring up the 360 degree as well because that's the only like word I had heard about this movie was, oh, it was shot in 360. And going to look at Glazer's previous films, he hasn't made anything since 2013, so it's been 10 years with Under the Skin, which, if I remember right, was a very acclaimed movie upon its release as well. So it's not like, oh, he's some random, whatever director, like this is someone who has a lot of critic support behind him.
Yeah.
With it being A24, we just saw what they did this past award season when they have a movie that people do cling on to and like. So if it does hit your bold prediction of winning the festival, that's an even bigger radar for whenever it does come out. I would guess October, November, maybe. And then in October and November, people are going to go out and see the Palme d'Or winner. And with it being A24 as well, that's a whole other audience. And it could, find an audience and work its way all the way to possibly picture, director, cinematography, maybe an acting, screenplay. And at that point, yeah, you're pretty set.
Well, this feels to me like Triangle of Sadness meets All Quiet on the Western Front. That's the vibe I'm getting from this one, which is a crazy package. That is a crazy package, possibly. Also, it's in German and Polish. It's a production from the United Kingdom, but the film is entirely in German and Polish.
For Oscar chances, at least, would this compete in international because A24's production company, or would it be a UK, or would it be in German?
So the United Kingdom would be able to submit it as their submission. Okay. I believe Poland might also be able to submit it, but it'll be the UK because Jonathan Glazer is British. Okay. And he has been working these past 10 years, but he directs commercials mostly, and he only makes a movie when it really draws him in. His first movie, Sexy Beast, got Ben Kingsley an Oscar nomination. Should have been a win, in my mind. And Under the Skin is like a freaky sci-fi horror movie. This is going to be very different. There's a reason why he's making this right now, and I could not be more excited for it. We're going to blast through a few of these. Asteroid City, Wes Anderson. We knew this would be here. It's going to be good, but it's not going to win anything. We know we're excited for this, but Wes Anderson is just like the guy that shows up in Cannes competition, and he's not going to win anything, but you're going to have a good time seeing him there.
It would be really weird for him to win with Oslin being the person picking as well. I don't see Oslin being a big Wes Anderson guy. I had nothing to base that on, but just from how they both, like their styles, they don't really seem like they would go together well.
No, absolutely not. The next one I want to talk about is Monster, which is directed by Hirokazu Kore-eda. Kore-eda is a master. He directed Shoplifters, which won the Palme d'Or in 2018. Broker came out last year. That one was not selected for the Oscars, and it kind of got a tepid response. People liked it. People did not love it. So the question with Monster is, can he bounce back after Broker kind of underwhelmed? And what I would say is, I'm not expecting Monster to be a big thing here. I'm excited to see Kore-eda back. I love Hirokazu Kore-eda, but this is not a film that I'm expecting to be, oh my god, it's going to the Oscars, like, put it in the Oscars right now, especially because we've got some other big Japanese movies coming this year. So, let's talk La Chimera, Alice Rohrwacher. This is an Italian film. It's the one that I've been predicting in Best Picture up until now when I was swapping it out for Zone of Interest. But this one, I think this is a big contender. I think we could see this winning director. We could see it winning screenplay. We could see it winning an acting prize. I do think this will probably be nominated at the Oscars, too. If we see a few of these new movies nominated, this is probably one of them.
And I guess I hate to copy you and Arno, but I know y'all are the international experts. Y'all are both having this as y'all's representatives. So it's like, okay, I'll follow along. After you had how you just described Zone of Interest, I'm also now leaning more that way. But let's say in the hypothetical, Zone of Interest does not win, but also this doesn't win either. And let's say it goes to something completely random that is not like an Oscar thing at all, like when Titan won. So like something like that wins. So would you lean still more with this movie being the Cannes movie to go all the way, or would you still switch up to something else?
It depends what the reviews for Zone of Interest are like, and it depends what the reviews for La Chimera are like. I mean, no one would have expected Drive My Car to be the one. So it's possible that something we don't expect right now is lurking in the shadows and is about to be one of the best movies of the year. We don't know what that's going to be. At the moment, the reason why I've had La Chimera in is because it's been the one that I've been like, oh, this is the easiest path that I see for this movie, especially because Neon is on board it already. That doesn't mean anything, really. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will do that, but it just looks possible. So I would say if La Chimera wins like screenplay or director, I think it's very possible to make its way in, especially if Zone of Interest does not perform over the top and win the Palme d'Or and or director. I could see it winning director too. Looking at the prize winners, that's really what I want to see. Look at who's winning the prizes, and from there we can kind of determine what's going to have the critical push, what's going to have the critical love, what is going to maintain its place in the conversation all year long. Talking about critical love, we've got the movie About Dry Grasses. This is Nuri Bilge Ceylan. He's a Turkish director. He won the Palme d'Or in 2014. He is a fascinating filmmaker, but extremely dry. The title of the movie, About Dry Grasses, you could use that to describe his filmmaking. It is slow, it is dry, this movie is going to be long, and it is going to make you feel every second of that runtime. I know Brother Bro over on The Oscar Expert is really hoping that this is a big hit. I could see it. I think that this is going to get like a 95 on Metacritic, but I just think it's going to be a little bit too boring for general audiences.
This could be that international movie that performs well all season that just misses at the Oscar as well.
Mm-hmm. It totally could, because this just feels to me like it's going to be too heady. It's going to be too criticky for voters. That's always been the issue with Nuri Bilge Ceylan. He won the Palme d'Or and he was not nominated for the Oscar that year. But after that, I want to mention the film The Passion of Dodin Bouffant. This is a French-Vietnamese film directed by Tran Anh Hung. It's about a cook. This seems like it's going to be a fun title. I love movies about food. And this one stars Benoît Magimel. It is going to be a lovely film. Could be an acting prize, I think. Also, it's just got a great title. The Passion of Dodin Bouffant. Like, are you kidding me? That's a great title. Mwah. And, of course, we finally get May December. It's going to be coming very soon. May December, Todd Haynes. Oh my God. Dylan, I know you've been hesitant on this. You've been hesitant because it doesn't have a distributor yet. What do you want to see from it here to feel confident about it in your predictions?
I just want to see it picked up. That's my thing. Once it has a distributor, I'm good. And, I mean, I'll feel even better because we'll have eyes on it. I know that we made not we, but I guess I made the comparison to Bardo. I was like, hey, Bardo didn't have a distributor forever, so
yeah.
I made that mistake last year. I bid on Bardo, so I don't want to make the same mistake 2 years in a row. But obviously, this has an actual description. It's not just cool movie by cool guy. So there's more going for this movie already. I guess my biggest thing is, what are our reactions? Is there a reason this doesn't have a distributor?
My theory is that there is a classified agreement between Netflix and Todd Haynes / the producers of this movie that I think after they play Cannes, because obviously a Netflix movie can't play Cannes competition. I think after they play Cannes, Netflix is going to buy this movie. And it's going to be like, oh my God, Netflix bought this movie that was just suspiciously without a distributor for so long. I think Netflix has had dibs on it for a very long time, but they know that they can't buy it before Cannes.
I guess the workaround for that would have been is you still buy it and you go to Venice, but I think they rather play Cannes.
I think Todd Haynes wants Cannes, and I think that they have other movies that they want to do Venice. I think they want El Conde at Venice. I think that they want a few other things at Venice. I think that they know Cannes is the place for this. But let's talk about one that is very small, but very big, exciting. And this is Banel and Adama. This is a film from Senegal. It's from the director Ramata Toulé Sy. This is her debut film. You don't see debut films in competition. In the past 10 years, there's been 4 of them. And of those 4, one of them won Best International Feature at the Oscars, one of them was nominated, one of them was shortlisted, and one of them was selected by its country. So that's 4. That's a good track record right there. You do not get selections that are first films unless they deserve to be here.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that. That is a good sign for this movie. After that, we've got maybe this year's EO, Perfect Days, directed by Wim Wenders. This is a German-Japanese co-production. It's 4 short stories about a guy working in Tokyo as a public toilet cleaner. So we just see 4 stories in his life as he cleans toilets. I don't know what this is going to be, but maybe this is EO.
Donkey goes to the toilet. That's what I want.
That's one of the stories. That's story 5, actually. And then the last one that's piquing my interest here is Jeunesse, which I think in English is going to be called Youth Spring by Wang Bing. This is the first documentary film in competition since 2004 when Michael Moore won the Palme d'Or for Fahrenheit 9/11. Wang Bing is fascinating. This guy makes 10-hour-long movies. He actually has one movie called Tiji Ku. It has a 4.4 out of 5 on LETTERBOXD. It is one of the highest rated movies of all time on Letterboxd, and it is 10.5 hours long. I don't think this is going to be that long, but it's really fascinating to have a movie by this guy in competition who makes very slow documentary films, and this is sure to be no exception. And of course, we've got the rest of all of these films in competition. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but is there anything else on this list that's jumping out to you, Dylan?
Yeah, I would say there's two. There's one that's more jokes, and the other one is for real. The jokes one would be there's a movie called Four Daughters. I wonder if there's any relation to the movie Four Brothers. The other one is one that I kind of just threw on my first predictions of the year just because, like, it has an interesting premise, and that would be Firebrand. It's based on the same book as The Queen's Gambit was. It has Alicia Vikander, it has Jude Law, some well-known actors, nominated actors. It's from a director I'd never heard of before, so very interesting, but it is showing here in competition. Could it just be a random movie that has to fill out the lineup, or could it be something for real? I guess we'll find out soon.
Now, just to let you know who the director is of this, he had a movie that got very close to being nominated for the International Feature Oscar in 2019. It was an Amazon movie called Invisible Life. It's a very good movie. I recommend checking it out. And it showed a lot of talent for visuals, a lot of talent for costume design. So him doing a period piece is very exciting. That said, it's a bit of an odd inclusion here to see this period piece with Alicia Vikander being in competition. It's one that I'm looking at as like, this is a bit of a confusing, interesting choice to be in competition. I don't know exactly what to think about it, but you made a good call putting that in your predictions very early. And in terms of Four Daughters, just worth mentioning, the director of that, Kauthar Ben-Hania, she was just nominated in 2020 for Best International Feature for The Man Who Sold His Skin. So now she's in competition right here. But there are so many great movies, and we're going to be seeing these hopefully very soon, talking about these over the next few months. I don't think there's much more to talk about. We've talked about Cannes for quite a long time. So if you're still here, thank you so much for tuning in and watching our video talking about these Cannes exciting news things. Yeah, can't wait to see them. Let us know what you are most excited to see from the Cannes Film Festival. And as always, my name's Matt.
My name is Dyl. This is Fantasy Filmball.